Operation Allies Welcome is the ongoing effort to bring Americans home and to bring vulnerable Afghans to the United States and support their resettlement. The President of the United States has the authority to designate a federal agency to lead a federal response. Last Friday, he designated the Department of Homeland Security as the lead federal agency to coordinate Operation Allies Welcome.
Deemed a security risk of some kind. What reassurances can you make about the screening process and the attempts to make sure that somebody like that doesn't make his or her way here?
I can absolutely assure you that no one is coming into the United States of America who has not been through a thorough screening and background check process.
You're referring to what we termed Operation Allies Welcome, a program that we are very proud of, that we instituted to provide refuge for individuals, many of whom...
Will you be reviewing those they came in on parole? Will you be reviewing them on a case-by-case basis?
We reviewed them on a case-by-case basis, and when those parole periods are subject to renewal, we will do so. It certainly is. Operation Allies Welcome, which we led in a coordinated effort across the government, is a great source of pride for us to bring to safety in the United States individuals who stood alongside our armed forces.
A few years later.
Here it is. What do you know?
Well, this individual appears to be from Washington State. It appears that he immigrated here into the United States in 2021 as part of the operation to bring Afghanis who had worked with or assisted the United States government over into this country as Afghanistan was beginning to fall.
The Special Immigrant Visa Program, SIV program.
Right, exactly. This was the Allies Welcome program. He applied for asylum under that program and was granted that asylum in April of this year, although he's been here, it appears, since 2021. So that sets this in a place where the FBI is going to be looking at what was the vetting that was done prior to his arrival here, when he settled in Washington, what has been his activities here in the United States, what brought him to Washington, how long has he been there. But it's going to give them a better direction at this point as they try to get from who is this individual, which they believe they've established, to what is his motive. Now, a number of motives could come up there. One could be that he was disenchanted in the United States. Another could be that he was angry at the U.S. military or felt betrayed and came upon people in uniform when he traveled to Washington. Or it could be something altogether different.
In other words...
All right, guys, so we got an update on the tragic story that happened earlier today in front of the White House in Washington, D.C., involving two members of the National Guard who were ambushed by some raging lunatic in front of the White House and shot, okay? And earlier reports were not good, okay? At some point, it was announced that they were dead. However, those reports have been retracted. As of the making of this video, they are still alive in critical condition, but hopefully they make a full recovery. Okay, my thoughts and prayers are with the families and the members of the National Guard who, again, are making a recovery in the hospital as of the making of this video. And we're doing an update because we now know the identity of the suspect that committed this heinous act. And lo and behold, it is a migrant from Afghanistan that was let into the country under the Biden administration. And I want to talk about this story because this story right here is just another example of the failure of the Biden administration and the consequences of Biden's immigration policies, in which he let a bunch of people into the country who apparently were poorly vetted. So without further ado, let's go ahead and roll a clip so that you guys can get a better understanding of what happened and who this guy is. Take a look.
This is a Fox News alert. Two National Guardsmen in critical condition tonight after being shot in a targeted attack just blocks from the White House. The lone suspect is in custody. Sources telling Fox News that the gunman is an Afghan national who was let in under Biden and then overstayed his visa. And this is in just moments ago. The suspect apparently waited for the guardsman to come around the corner, then opened fire. He shot a female guard in the chest, then walked up, took her firearm and shot her point blank in the head. He took her weapon and fired at other Guard members, hitting one in the neck before a third Guardsman engaged him and brought him down. Let's go live now to West Palm Beach, where Fox's Dana Marie McNichol is standing by. Dana Marie, what has the reaction been from the White House tonight?
Hi, Jason. Good evening. Although President Trump is here in Florida, the White House went on lockdown immediately after that shooting happened. We know that the president was quickly briefed, and then he posted on Truth Social updates. He shared the suspect who shot the two National Guard members is severely wounded and will, quote, pay a very steep price. He wrote, God bless our great National Guard and all our military and law enforcement. They are truly great people. We know Senator Chuck Schumer, he posted on X, he's closely monitoring the situation and thanking first responders for quickly capturing the suspect that Fox News just confirmed is an Afghan national who came into the United States during Operation Allies Welcome in 2021 under the Biden administration. Now, law enforcement sources say they believe the male suspect acted alone in a targeted attack. Now, hundreds of National Guard troops have been in Washington since August, and earlier this month, President Trump ordered their deployment to be extended in the city until at least through February of next year. And tonight, the Secretary of War, Pete Hegseth, said that Trump ordered an additional 500 troops to be deployed in D.C. Now, as the news of the shooting broke, Vice President J.D. Vance, he was addressing service members at Fort Campbell in Kentucky ahead of the Thanksgiving holiday. He asked for prayers for the two West Virginia National Guard members who are in critical condition tonight. And Jason, you just shared those gruesome details of how the shooting played out just blocks away from the White House. Now, the president is not expected to address this shooting on camera tonight, but tomorrow does have a scheduled call over the phone with service members. So, of course, we'll be bringing you those remarks.
Yeah, so you seen that, you heard that. So apparently this individual is a 29-year-old migrant from Afghanistan who was let into the country under Biden administration under Operation Allies Welcome, a program that was created to resettle Afghans after the U.S. withdrawal from Afghanistan. Now, apparently, what the Biden administration was doing is that they were taking in Afghans who helped out the U.S. military. And apparently this guy helped out the U.S. military in some shape or form, and that's why he was let into the country. Now, the problem is that apparently this guy was not vetted properly, right? There were a lot of questions about the Biden administration's vetting process and exactly how these refugees were vetted, okay, before coming into the country. And this was the subject of a lot of controversy during congressional hearings while Biden was in office. Take a look.
The anomalous situation of Afghan refugees, our former translators and guards, security people who worked with us, put their lives on the line, have been brought to this country in a parole status, which unfortunately now is ending. I'm urging you to extend the parole status of Afghan evacuees and do it in enough time to advance the expiration of that status to avoid uncertainty and anxiety. Is that something that you have under consideration?
Senator, it certainly is. Operation Allies Welcome, which we led in a coordinated effort across the government, is a great source of pride for us to bring to safety in the United States individuals who stood alongside our armed forces in Afghanistan. We support the Adjustment Act, and we are indeed looking at the period of parole, its upcoming expiration, and whether indeed that should be extended.
There are, as you know, more than 88,000 Afghans evacuated, flown out of the country and resettled in the United States, and about 90% of them were granted parole for only 2 years. And so they live in this netherworld of immigration status where it's difficult for them to make plans, to get jobs, to even get housing. And so the sooner you can extend that parole status, the better. as I'm sure you understand.
How many Afghans, Mr. Secretary, have been admitted to the United States through parole since the fall of Kabul? 2 years ago.
Congressman, I would be pleased to provide you with that data. I don't have it.
There were 70,192 Afghans that were brought into the United States. They were brought here on parole for 2 years. Will you be reviewing each individual status on a case-by-case basis as this expiration happens?
Congressman, you're referring to what we termed Operation Allies Welcome, a program that we are very proud of, that we instituted to provide refuge for individuals, many of whom...
Will you be reviewing those they came in on parole, will you be reviewing them on a case-by-case basis?
We reviewed them on a case-by-case basis, and when those parole periods are subject to renewal, we will do so.
The commander down at Fort McCoy in my state, when I interviewed him 2 years ago, he said they were not interviewed on a case-by-case basis. In fact, in the terror hotbed of the world, Afghanistan, which should have a special immigrant visa process, previous administration used that to make sure to fully vet. Not one of those people that came in from Afghanistan were sent through the special immigrant visa process. They were simply given parole. Do you know how much damage was done to Fort McCoy during that period when those 12,000 plus Afghans came in?
Congressman, the individuals who were benefited from Operation Allies Welcome were indeed screened and vetted by government personnel.
They were brought in categorical parole, Mr. Chairman. There was $145.6 million of damage that was done to Fort McCoy. Did you realize that?
Congressman, we're very
The place was virtually destroyed. I want to move on.
Yeah, so you're saying that you heard that. Okay, there have been questions about whether or not this guy was vetted properly, okay, by the Biden administration, who decided to let him in. And according to Fox News, the suspect allegedly overstayed his visa and was in the country illegally. Now, CNN is reporting something a little bit different. And I got to be honest and tell you guys what they're reporting.
What we know is that he comes here from Afghanistan. Now, this is a guy who's been living in Washington State, not Washington, D.C., on the other end of the country. He comes here from Afghanistan in the summer of 2021. Remember what that was like. Refugees fleeing Afghanistan, people had to be recommended by U.S. people on one end, vetted on this end by government background checks as far as they could do in Afghanistan, have sponsors and so on. He settled in Washington. He applies for asylum in December of 2024. Now he goes through another vetting process involving that, and he's approved for asylum in April of this year under the Trump administration. He comes in under the Biden administration. These checks are being done. I remember as a part of the Joint Terrorism Task Force in New York, where we supplied people for that vetting process, it was a lot of pressure. There was a lot of people. They were being kept in military installations. A lot of that vetting had to be done very quickly. I also remember we had to go back afterwards when we found information on certain people and bring them back. In this case, that's all we know about this individual, but it appears that he must have done work either for or with the United States in Afghanistan to become part of the Allies Welcome program and be brought here. That still doesn't get us closer to motive.
No, although...
Yeah, so as of the making of this video, I don't know whether Fox News report or CNN's report is accurate, right, in regards to the status of this guy. What we do know is that he was let into the country under the Biden administration, a Biden-specific program, in which there were questions about the vetting process. Now, whether or not, his visa expired and, he was here legally, or whether or not, he applied for asylum and he was granted asylum under the Trump administration, I don't know that. But even if he was granted asylum under the Trump administration, do not let leftists use that as a way to distract from the fact that he was let into the country in the first place under Biden administration with a program that apparently had poor vetting, okay? Because let's be real, we've talked about this before. I don't know who granted this guy asylum. If he did get asylum, right, if he actually was granted asylum under Trump administration, you got to understand that is something that judges handle. Okay, that's not something that the administration has control over. Trump has been firing a lot of judges who are giving individuals asylum who should not be getting asylum. Also, what information did we have to work with, right? Were we working with the information that the Biden administration gave us? We don't know, because again, if he was poorly vetted by the Biden administration, then there could have been a lack of information for the Trump administration. I don't know. But regardless, what we do know is that he was let into this country under the Biden administration, under a Biden-specific program in which they took individuals, high-risk individuals, because, again, they're from a high-risk area of the world, and they let them into the country. And apparently the vetting process was poor, right? It was a poor vetting process, and, this is the result.
We must now re-examine every single alien who has entered our country from Afghanistan under Biden, and we must take all necessary measures to ensure the removal of any alien from any country who does not belong here or add benefit to our country. If they can't love our country, we don't want them. America will never bend and never yield in the face of terror. And at the same time, we will not be deterred from the mission these service members were so nobly fulfilling. That is why tonight I can announce that I have directed the Department of War to mobilize an additional 500 troops to help protect our capital city. We will make America totally safe again, and we will bring the perpetrator of this barbaric attack to swift and certain justice if the bullets going in the opposite direction haven't already done that. During this time of the year, when we gather at home with loved ones, these two patriots were wearing the uniform of our country, patrolling the streets of our capital. They had taken a selfless oath to defend our nation against all enemies, foreign and domestic. And that is exactly what they were doing when they were gunned down in a savage attack. I want to express my extraordinary gratitude to every member of the United States military who is deployed tonight, at home and abroad. I also want to thank the Secret Service and the D.C. Metropolitan Police Department for their work today. This Thanksgiving, I ask every family to say a prayer for the two great heroes who were so horribly shot, and for their loved ones. Please say a prayer. May God bless them and comfort them, and may God bless and protect the United States of America. Thank you and good night.
And the Biden administration, the Democrats have inflicted on this nation the worst national security threat in our history. We've never faced a threat like this. 20 million people brought into our country from the most failed societies on earth. Afghanistan, Somalia, Libya, Iraq, brought here. No vetting, no conditions, no rules. Brought here on visas, brought here on as refugees, brought here as asylees, brought here as illegals, brought here in every way imaginable, by plane, train, bus, automobile, by land, by sea. For 4 straight years, they deluged this country. And now more blood is being spilled as a result. What you heard tonight from President Trump, the breaking news here tonight, is saying that his government is going to accelerate efforts to review every person added to this country over the last 20 years, or the last 4 years, all 20 million. Now, obviously, if you're illegal, you're out automatically. But everybody else who was brought here, refugee, asylum status, whatever status, as he said, if you're not someone who loves this country, if you're not adding benefit to this country, then we're going to send you out of this country. Because it's enough already. No one else has to die. No one else has to be murdered. No one else has to be shot. No more empty seats are needed at the Thanksgiving table or the Christmas table because of what Democrats have done to this country. So tonight we heard from a commander-in-chief a historic announcement, a brave announcement, exactly what America needed to hear, Kellyanne.
And that's what we got as of right now. So we still don't know the motive. The federal law enforcement, they're calling this an act of terrorism. We don't know why this guy decided to do it. Okay. I still believe that it is likely that he could have been influenced by the rhetoric of the Democrat Party in the mainstream liberal media. Who knows? So we have to continue to follow this story, but the way that it's shaping up, once again, we have a story that's not going to fit the narrative for the mainstream liberal media. They're going to try to sweep this one under the rug really, really, really quick, right? They don't want to talk about this, okay? So expect the media to try to use the holiday to move on from the story, but we're not going to move on. We need to know a motive why he did this, and my gut feeling tells me that he was probably radicalized in some way by some of the rhetoric that we've heard in the media. You know, and if that's not the case, then he probably was radicalized in other ways that, again, don't fit the narrative that the mainstream liberal media and the Democrat Party wants to put out there. So we're going to see. But let me know what you guys think. Make sure you like, comment, and subscribe. Most importantly, share a Black conservative perspective. Peace.